are going to work on a letter M in medieval style. And we will work on one that does not have connecting top pieces and bottom pieces, because apparently some people do not like that style of M. So we're just going to do it with pillars on either end. Maybe not that high. It's good to have a margin around all the sides of it so that you can mat it if you need to. But you still want the object itself to be reasonably large so that you can have space to add in details. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little bigger. That's looking like it's not quite. That's why we draw these things in pencil, so we can adjust them till they're the way that we want them. A bit more. Alright, we got the two pillars of the M. Now actually what I could do, I'm going to just fix this one a little bit. They're sort of looking like two trees. Part of the problem is that I hand cut this paper because I think I'm out of my actual sketch pad watercolor paper. I didn't cut it quite even, so that means normally I reference myself against the edges of the paper. The edges of the paper aren't quite right. Everything will be alright. Alright, so I have the two pillars of the sides of the M, and I think what I'm going to do is put a hammock in between them to make the curved part of the M. It'll have to be a deep hammock, and I suppose if I tied the rope like that and then tied it sort of like that, and then strung the hammock like that. And that creates an M shape. Does it have to be a little deeper before it looks like an M? Or is that adequate to make it M-like? I think that should be adequate. No, I don't want the... I suppose I'll make it a little deeper. You know, I don't want to make it a super saggy hammock, but you also want it to at least reasonably look like an M. You got a sleeping mouse. You got the pillars of the tree holding it up. Alright. some little curls. Alright, we'll put some holes for flowers and things. This, just this. Yeah, I think we'll start. If we start on the inside, no, we'll start on the outside. Alright, there's some leaves. Alright, we'll do some from this side. There. Little leaves on there. All right. Alright, so next we trace this over with a waterproof pen. You want to use waterproof so that when you add the watercolors to this, it does not smear. If you decide you want to make changes to your design, I highly recommend making the changes in pencil just in case. That way you're really sure that the changes work well before you commit to pen. Pen that I'm using is the Sakura Jelly Roll 06. But you can use any waterproof pen you want to. Just make sure it is waterproof so when you get to the watercolor stage, things do not smear all over the place. can be for all sorts of different kinds of great names. Michael, Megan, Michelle, Monica, and of course Mom. Madison, Michelangelo, Minnie, Melissa, Mark, all right. Madonna. Okie dokie. Oh, some little petals. Alright, so we'll give that a moment to dry. So I think the pillars will be brown, since those are sort of the trees. And I'm also going to make the hammock brown so that it stays more consistently together and looks like a letter M. Then the mouse will be gray, the leaves will be green, and we'll make the flowers red, I think. So I'm going to start with the first few petals on the flowers. I'm going to figure out where I put my petal making brush. I thought I left it right here. Apparently not. This one might be small enough. Petals in layers. So I want to put down the first layer so it has time to dry while I'm working on the other things. There's cat hairs around me suspiciously. I'm going to give the different petals a chance to dry so that they look like unique petals and not like a big blob of color. I'll put a couple more of these little things along the length of the flower. Alrighty. I want a brush that's a little bigger for the main swath of the tree, which we'll do in this burnt sienna. We'll start over here. I have two versions of burnt sienna from two different manufacturers. It's funny how they have the same name, but the color is just not quite the same. And they're good for different situations. Just have to remember which one I am using so I don't mix it up partway through. When you are painting, on one hand you have to think of how to get into a space based on your hand angle and all that sort of stuff, so moving around shapes can sometimes be tricky. But you also want to think about the way your brush strokes are angling and how that's going to look when it dries, because often with watercolor you can see the brush strokes. And if you're trying to create an impression, like in this case of a tree, you generally want all your brush strokes going in the same sort of direction as if it was the bark. So keep those two different thoughts in mind. And you can always do a first pass to get the overall coverage that you need, and then a second pass to help to establish the brush strokes so that they go in the direction that you want them to. And also it's good to think a little bit about shadowing. Our brains are trained from an early age that things up on top are lighter because the sunlight is hitting them, and things down near the bottom are shadowier because of the shadow cast by the sun. So it's good in general when you're painting things to think about adding a little darker color in the bottom, and you know, this is just generalization, depends what you're painting. But to think about where the light might be coming in a scene and where it might be casting some shadows. All right, now we're working on pillar number 2. We are working on the brown, which is burnt sienna. So let me know in the comments if you have any questions for me. Everything I'm using here is on the inexpensive side, so it is affordable for you. These are bulk brushes from Michaels, which you can also get pretty much anywhere. The paints are bulk paints that I buy in tubes because it's more frugal that way, and then just put into a tin to use when I am able to use them. It is fine that they dry out. It is normal and natural for watercolors to dry out. I imagine in elementary school you might have worked with the pre-made pen kinds of circle shapes of watercolors. And those are just watercolors that initially were wet and were put into there and then dried out. So it's completely fine for watercolors to dry, and then you just re-wet them to use them again. So unlike acrylics and other things where if they get dry you've got destroyed, with watercolors they are still just as good as when they begin. Just adding a little more texture to these tree things so it looks a little more like bark. And maybe a little more to the right hand or the left hand one. Again, with this whole thought that if the sun's coming from the top right, that the right hand one will be more in the sun, and this left hand one over here will be further in the shade. Okie doke. I'm going to make the hammock also brown so that it continues this M shape. It makes it more clear that this is an M. Now, on one hand I want them to all be brown. On the other hand, it'd be good if it looked a little bit different. I suppose I can make it a little darker. So in watercolors, one generally makes things darker by putting on more paint, because the more paint layers that there are, the more you're blocking the room's light from getting to the paper and bouncing back out at your eyeball. So you can make things darker and darker by layering on more paint. In general, it's a color like yellow, you might need to add some other darker colors to it to darken it up. Hello, kitten. You are a good kitten. Yes, you are a very good kitten. Right, no, kitten, you can't step on this because this is wet. How about you shouldn't step on this? I suppose you are perfectly capable of stepping on it because that's what you like to do. No, sweetie, I was saying I don't want you over here right now. Come on, go over on the mouse pad. You like the mouse pad. When I'm trying to mouse with things, come on over here. You've already lost one of my brushes. When I'm on the mouse pad, Kitty wants to be on the mouse pad. Yes. Yes, Kitty. Always an adventure. Kitty is obsessed with the end of my brush right now. I'm completely determined to go eat it. Alright, I think I've gotten Kitty distracted. Alright, back to the leaves. This is the permanent green light. Just add in a few little green leaves here. Hello, kitten. Yes, you are a very good kitten. Have I not petted you enough in the last 2 seconds? You know, it's hard, this life of a kitten. Where are you going? Sweetie. Yes, yes, you are a delightful kitten. Kitten, you were just here 2 seconds ago. Yes, Nuzzle. You are a wonderful kitten. No, no, this is not for you to eat. Paint cannot be good for you. In the grand scheme of things, it's probably alright, but I would still rather not have you eating watercolor paint. I'll give you plenty of other food and treats. Sweetie? Yes, that's my brush. Yes, that's still my brush. Alright. Are you done nibbling on my brush? Oh, Kitty is laying down immediately next to the paper. I know, sweetie. Oh, you can't use my hand as a pillow right now. I am painting. Right, I suppose can't was the wrong word. It'll be very troublesome if you use my hand as a pillow right now. Because I'm trying to paint something. Clearly, your head over here is not conducive to getting the painting done. Yes, you're a good kitten. Where are you going? You want to go in my lap? Come on, sweetie. Come over on the mouse pad. Come over here. Sweetie, you don't want cat prints all over this. Okie doke. I think that the first red petals should be dry enough that I can make a second set of red petals. Kitten. Kitten, you're making this fairly challenging. Yes, you're a very, very good kitten. But my arm can't be a pillow right now, sweetie. The arm has to do things. Alright. Kitties are so cute and fuzzy. Alright. This mouse is going to be Payne's Gray. This is over here. Sweetie. Sweetie, we had this discussion about you being right in the middle of everything. Kitten. Trying to paint around my cat right now. Which is not really good for my hand angle. Alright, sweetie, come on, you have to go over this way. Cat is once again laying down so that my arm is a pillow for her. And of course I'm feeling guilty about this. I'm trying to keep my arm still while I paint. Little mouse face in. Little ear. Alrighty. I'll paint the little circles in. We'll do those in raw umber so they're a bit darker. Alright. Yes, kitty, that's a brush. You are such a good kitten. You are so helpful. I probably would have forgotten all about that brush if you had not pointed it out to me. Oops. What was that, kitty? Is that your sibling causing problems? Alright. I think I managed to knock this lower hole a little bit with my palm of my hand. So let me just pull some of that extra color out of there. I think I made her face a little darker than I wanted, so what I'm going to use is just plain water. When you use plain water, it acts sort of like a sponge and lifts up the color a little bit. It won't do it completely, but at least it'll do it a little bit to lighten it up a little. And by lighten, what I mean is that it's taking some of the pigment up off of there. And since there's less pigment blocking the room's light from getting to the paper, you get more of the white of the paper bouncing back out. And that ends up making the area look brighter. Right. Make another little petal in here. Some little under leaves. Okie dokie. Alright, so that looks like an M. Hopefully, it's at least reasonably M-like. I'm sure that some people will complain that this one isn't M-like enough. But you know what? You try different things. And some people will like them and some people won't like them. And that is alright. You can make your M with whatever design you want. And whatever colors and shapes that you want to add. Let's add some little silver dots to this. There we go. Alright, so we got a letter M with a mouse, some red flowers. Let me know if you have any questions.